Okay, so let's go ahead and create a battle plan for actually knocking this thing out. Very simple first start procedure. Not gonna need these yet. Not gonna need these yet. And we're not gonna need these because we're not gonna be soldering them yet. I mean, we could do a couple of different things, but I would highly recommend what I think is the best so far that I've done is get all of the parts that you need and none of the stuff you don't need. So we're gonna put that in there. We don't need the turret boards just yet. We're gonna put all that stuff away. Put them in a nice little cubby hole. We're gonna need tube sockets. We're gonna need potentiometers, switches. Not gonna need wire yet. We will need our mounting brackets, possibly for the turret boards. I don't think we need really any of this stuff right this second, so we'll actually put that away as well. These are some ties and some other different things, fuses, and then the sticker set. Now, we definitely don't need that. So when we look at it, in little chunks at a time, this is what we start with. And if you just looked at it from a project's perspective of just this, if you only had one thing to do as an employee of an amp company, which is to take all these parts and you were doing your assembly, you would be doing this. You would be assembling just these guys in the right order, making sure you're checking off all the parts across the board, and that would be phase one. So we don't need to go crazy with all of this stuff. We just, you know, the old stupid thing, which is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right. So we've got all this stuff right here, ready to go. And we're going to figure out where the switches go. We have to compare, you know, the schematic and the play for this. Very cool. And then we're just going to lay them out. Make sure that we, for example, let's just cut one of these bags open just to see. I got to get myself some good quality scissors. These suck. But on the back of these, for example, you've got alpha. It's good quality stuff. And then we're here, we've got A1M. Now, I'm just going to say something real quick. I guarantee when I try to twist this, that knob is really hard to turn. Now, some people like that. I don't really particularly like that because I think what ends up happening, just in my experience, is if I leave it like this, okay, and it's, I don't know if they've got some kind of a lube or something like that that's in there, and it's probably going to be fine for many, many years to come. But I have something called deoxit fader, okay? And I'll spray it right here in these little cracks, okay? And just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then this thing will be like nothing, okay? And also, this lubricant doesn't really fade away. It actually will protect it, lubricate it, and all that kind of stuff. So the worst thing you ever have to do is when you get into an amplifier that's hard to get out, is you will have to get into this and spray all this kind of stuff, and then the residuals got in this. So what I can do is I can spray this over like a garbage can, and then, you know, get in there, twist it, all that kind of stuff, and I'm good. Also, want to point out, you see these little tabs right here? These come on from the factory, but when you try to put them up into the cage here, it's gonna limit how far that it can go, and so that you don't want to do that. So you're gonna want to take a pair of needle nose pliers, just like so. Grab that little tab, bend it back and forth a few times. More than a few times. And it just breaks right off, okay? And so once that happens, you just put it in here, and then you can get, well, obviously if you have the nut on there, it's not gonna make much sense. But just like the nut was keeping it from there, now you can see it goes all the way through. And so that's what we wanna do when we're assembling these. Now, the other thing is to identify what type of potentiometer they are and the value. This is an A, okay? And it's a 1M, which means 1 million, okay? So that's basically what the resistance is. Now you can test all these different types of deals by just using two of these terminals right here. If you try to test the outsides, you'll never get a reading because it's either between these two or these two. So if you sweep it this way, those will be on. If you sweep it this way, those will be on, or vice versa, okay? And so it's the resistance that's actually we're looking for. But I actually like to go through each one of these and clean all of them, lubricate them, and just set them up so I don't ever have to do that in the future. This is a great thing. You find it on Amazon. It's fairly inexpensive. There's another version of it, which is just deoxit. This is something that's not necessarily for faders or moving parts, but if you have something like, I don't know, just an electronic component that's just corroded, this is a really, really good product as well. So this one is great, but this one is really good for faders because it provides a lubricant that doesn't go away and it makes it very smooth. So that's something to look up. I'll put that link in the description as well where you can get that. But the whole idea is let's just fill all these holes, get all this stuff ready to go. So we can get it soldered together, because we're not actually going to be building a turret board necessarily right up front. What we're going to be doing is just getting everything lined up, and then once we do that, we're going to get a good game plan of how long the wires need to go from once the turret boards are installed. You'll be able to actually wire them to those things. So you don't want to have the wires like that long when they only need to go this way. So you want to make it fairly clean. You also want to consider that sometimes you're going to screw up. This will happen. And you want to make the wires a little bit playful. And I don't mean like playful like that, but I mean playful where the length is really only this big, but you want to leave it about that long. And the reason for that is you want to have a little bit of play just in case you have to move something or twist it or something like that. It's not so tight that you have to remove everything or desolder everything. It just makes things a little bit easier. So once I get that set up, I'm going to lay out all the parts, make sure I confirm all of the electronic components, and then I'm also going to lubricate all of the potentiometers. And then, you know, shake off the residual and stuff like that. So we'll do that and we'll come back to you. Just wanted to point something out before freakout moment, and looking at your parts and saying, oh my god, I'm missing parts, and contacting them and complaining that they didn't send everything out. These were sent in a separate bag, and so we can count 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all for the 12AX7s. However, I was looking for these guys, which are the tube sockets for the ELA34 or 84s, and I was like, okay, we got these guys, but I didn't look at them close enough, and guess what? Oh, there are tube sockets in there. So we don't need the other parts from this, but we do need the tube sockets themselves. So you probably do need to make sure that when you go through these kits to at least open up all the bags, and then, you know, make sure that you got all the parts, even though they may be kind of organized in a weird way that you didn't expect. But this is why you want to do a layout before you just start building, because sometimes you are stupid, like I have been in my previous lifetimes, and freak out for no reason. So again, this is why we do this, just to make sure we get organized, and then we can confirm that we do or do not have all of the little parts. And it looks like we're doing good so far. And then we're gonna go ahead and go off the list one by one and just mark what we need to mark. But it looks like we have pretty much all of the hardware components for the chassis, or chassis, whatever you wanna do. Got a power light. That's a cool power light. I like that. That's so cool. It's a little jewel. It's rad. I like that. All right, so what we got here, had to go down to a UPS store and print this out. I wanted to make sure that I had it in a high gloss and good color finish so I could follow all the layouts for all the colors and stuff, because these wires are extremely important. So this is a little small, so I wanted to blow this up because this is an 11 by 17. And every time we try to blow it up, we'd have like wires cut at the top, so we printed it like 15 times and the guy just could not really get it. But I think this was the best version we could do. But even then, you know, some of this stuff was still, you know, cut off at the bottom and the top, I think just for whatever reasons. But I can definitely follow this because it's got enough information and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to end up using this as my reference. This is the smaller version, the exact same thing, but you know, I was just saying, and I wrote Nick a message, and you see how many different versions we had to do until we could get it right. I mean, it was a lot, but you know, it was kind of a pain to have to, you know, go all the way down there and you know, print this stuff out when it just, you know, it'd be nice if this was included. That's the only thing I'm going to say, because if they include this, fold it, whatever they have to do, but it's big enough in the case they could easily do it. That said, now I have what I need to get the job done. I think this is a really good size. I can read it very clearly without having my glasses on, and you can see how easy all these components. Now, as we're looking at all this stuff right here, really when you think about it, there's not much to this amplifier. I mean, it's really kind of simple. Doesn't look like it requires that many parts. I mean, I'm looking at probably maybe 60 pieces, you know, at best. So this is not a really complicated amp. There's a lot of leads that have to be traced and all that kind of stuff, but most of the stuff just goes to the turret boards, and there's just a, I believe that's what that metal's for. Now I'm trying to figure out where I'm tracing that copper rod that they included. I think that might be for like this guy, that straight line across. I may be wrong. It may be for these guys. I don't know. But either way, they included it, but I'm just not exactly sure what that's for. But as we're going to do this, like I said, the first thing that we're going to do is we got the layout here. So we know where the layout for the volume, the treble, the middle, the bass, and it's got the 1Ms, and it's got the 22 and the 250. And then we've got you know, the other different parts for the chassis and stuff like that. We can see where those are going. Let me see if I can give you, let me pause this real quick. Okay, so this is what the Rose amp or whatever, this is what it looked like. So this is a PCB board, and if you look closely, you can actually see the values of all the capacitors and the transistors and resistors and everything that's basically right here. So you just drop them in and do this. So this is a little bit different. It also came with a full schematic, which is kind of important too, because what this layout does not really have is I don't really see any voltages on here, and I guess that's something that I'm going to have to print out as well, you know, for troubleshooting and testing and everything like that, because this is just a layout. This is, I mean, you could follow this out, but this is almost like looking at a layout. But I mean, if you're trying to you know, figure out what the value is on this particular run to see what the actual voltage is, this is definitely, you know, very necessary. Pedal boards, you know, if you've ever done some of the pedal boards, even like this, you know, this has got, you know, the pedal board for the schematic. So you can learn a lot about these, you know, schematics and see what preamp sections are, just by getting into it. But for the most part, this right here is what we need just to get started. So this is a really nice layout. Cost me $5 to do this one at UPS, so it's definitely worth getting a full color. But yes, let's go ahead and continue and start to build this, and we'll lay out all the parts, make sure they're in the right order, and we'll check them off as we go. All right, so this is how I laid it out, and found that there was a couple of things that I never saw on this kind of a layout before, but it's not bad. It's just something that it's not the exact orientation. So when you look at this, if you look really closely, you can see the pins 1 through 9, and then there's a 1 stamp there in a circle. And then you look over here, there's a 1 stamped on that circle, but over here, there's a 2 stamped in that circle. I don't know if there's any real difference between that. It's usually a manufacturer that will stamp, the machine will stamp that in there. So if there's a problem with the thing, they'll know which machine it came from. That's what I understand about it. But like I said, that if in this orientation that goes into the frame, essentially they want you to lay it out where the 9 pin is like this, but it's actually going into the machine like this. So you got, or the, you know, the chassis like that. So definitely don't want it the wrong orientation where it's upside down like this. This wouldn't make any sense at all. But just be aware that this right here can't be changed in its orientation, but it can be confusing when you're looking at it. So don't look at it like this inside there and just assume, you know, that that's pin 8, because pin 8's actually here. So you can see what I'm talking about. Anyways, that being said, the reason when you laid all these things out to make sure that you got all the right components is they goofed up. You can see that this is a 1MA, this is a 1MA, this is a 250A, and this is a 25, which you can see up there at top. But here, that is a 22K, but they sent me a 25K. Now, I don't know if this is a huge difference, but it is part of the tone stack. So I would definitely want to make sure that I am putting the right component in there. This is just basic 3-way, you know, for the bright switch. And then we've got your input jack, and then you've got your two speaker jacks. You've got your impedance selector, fuse, and then your power. That's pretty much simple, and then also the indicator light that comes on. That is why you want to dry lay this out without putting it just blindly in there, because you do need to check it off. Now, I do also want to point out this is an interesting thing because they kind of just shortened this up. You can see how we've got a black going to an H and a red going to an H. And then over here, you can see over on the actual power tubes, that is the H from the red and that is the H from that. So I just assume that that is how they go, but it doesn't exactly show which of these go to which of those. So that's a little bit tricky. So something that I got to figure out, but it does not tell me which ones go to which. So I've got to kind of do a little bit of questioning, maybe even send out a little bit of here's and there's, but they all seem to maybe go to the same spot. So I guess they all have the same 4 and 5, 4 and 5, 4 and 5, 4 and 5. And then I guess all of the reds would just go to 4s, and then this would probably get branched out. So that's all I can assume. I'll confirm that on a couple of groups, but these are some of the things that you can't trace down 100% if the layout doesn't really make sense. Even on the other schematic that I showed you, this guy, this does show at least the orientation all the way across all of the bridges. So there's straight lines across the tubes, and then they show which ones go from where. But I can probably see just from this as a reference, I'll flip this over. Let's say from these are the preamp tubes, so looks like from the preamp tubes, which are these guys, here, they are going to 9 and they are going to 4, and then they end up going, these are the power tubes. So preamp tubes, it looks like 4 and 9 are all connected all the way across, which is good. And they would go over to the power amp tubes on to 7 and 2, I believe. Is that right? Doesn't look like 2 and, well, I don't know. I have to look at this, but it's not making 100% sense from what it looks like, but it does seem like that's how they go. All 5s get tied together and all 4s get tied together, and then whatever is going to that is going to that. So I'll have to confirm that, but that's why this layout is a slightly better layout, just so it really, shows you the point-to-point connections. But this does leave a little bit of guesswork in it. So it is a kit to build, but they just assume you know what you're doing. So just pointing out the obvious. This is not I'm telling you how to do it. This is just what I'm discovering as I'm doing it and learning it with you. Yeah, how the hell am I going to get anything done with this? So just to be thorough, I wanted to check the faceplate off of this because I saw that there was a mystery hole, which I just assumed that they used the Rocket and the Express and the regular Trainwreck Rocket. So I did a couple of things. Now I did check the list of the components, and it did say that there were supposed to be two 25s, even though this calls for a 22. I don't know if that's just a simple glitch. Somebody made a mistake on this, but that's why I said they if they have to edit these, they can actually update that, make sure that's a 25. But as a 25, that's the order that they should be in. I was wondering about this right here. So if you were confused and you were wondering what that is, it's just for a different model, so they don't have to do this because all the essential parts are the same. So I took the faceplate off, lined it up, and it's just not going to be used. So everything else will be good. I'm not going to put the faceplate on right now, obviously, because we can take off the little guys, the nuts, and all the washers, put them on there, and then put them on top of this after the fact. So anyways, that's just for me testing. This is a very pretty plate. I like that a lot. So I'm going to protect that so it doesn't get scratched, but I like that little dragon. It's cool. Anyways, I hope that helped. Small detail, but I thought I was going to be able to just remove these so I wouldn't scratch this while I was flipping it over. So you do need to put this plate on before you actually put in the pilot light, because the pilot light, once it's screwed in, there's nothing to hold it in there. It's just a counter screw back here, the little bolt, and it's a pain in the ass. So I'm going to have to desolder that to get that on there. So instead, I'm actually just going to cut a little bit deeper hole and just let it surround that, just about the same size of this. I wish it would have just slid on, but anyways, just a detail. Make sure that if you're going to do this, you're going to have to put that on. Otherwise, you're going to have to put that pilot light in last and then solder it together. There you have it. Just little components just put in there. Got some extra screws. This one right here I'm not going to put in just yet because obviously it is hard to get to at that little corner, and there's little tabs. So what I'll do, I'll end up soldering that or putting the leads through or something like that just so I can connect it. But that's the hard thing. Sometimes these, you know, when you put these things through, they're just difficult to get to. But you can start with those and kind of work your way out. And all that is just something that gets termed right into this, because that's the power just for the indicator. So it's real short lead, but everything else looks good. I'm real happy about this one. This is going to be a lot of fun to get going. Can't wait until it's actually powered up, but it's actually a pretty simple circuit. So we will see what this thing can do.